Hi everybody, welcome back into the channel. My name is Travis and I am still surviving an avoidant discard. So in the last video was the welcome to the channel video. I mentioned that I am 6 months out of an avoidant discard, a particularly heartbreaking and devastating type of breakup. If you've clicked on this video, I'm assuming that you're familiar with the different attachment styles and what an avoidant discard is. I'm not a big fan of the phrase discard. Discard, I think, refers more to how we as the anxious, or in my case, the anxious leaning fearful avoidant, feels after the breakup. We feel discarded, but I don't believe that the dismissive avoidant means to hurt us or discard us. I remember saying to Sarah, when did I become so disgusting that you had to discard me like garbage, because that's what it felt like. You feel like you're just thrown away and you're unimportant, like garbage. But the dismissive avoidant is just as unhealed as we are. As a matter of fact, they share some of the all the same wounds: the fear of abandonment, the fear of betrayal, fear of rejection, all of these things. It's simply that they've learned to adapt, right? Their attachment style, just like ours, is an adaptation that they learned in childhood, how to manage this, and they simply went in the opposite direction that we did. So I don't want to become another channel where dismissive avoidants are vilified or demonized because they're struggling just as much as we are. And she was no different. So here we are now, a month later. I'm now 7 months out of this breakup. I mentioned in the last video that I was going to try some hypnotherapy, and the reason I got to that point, I just had just an awful trip down to Calgary. I was meant to help a friend at a trade show and do some work for some other clients and whatnot. And I think I was down there 20 minutes and I absolutely just couldn't do it. I don't know if it was the fact that, the last trip I took was with Sarah, the last time was down that highway, last time I packed a bag, whatever, but it was just weighing on my mind. And I don't want to say I came unglued, but I remember I was driving back and I called my best friend and in tears, and I'm just saying, I can't do this anymore. I can't pretend that I don't hurt anymore. And I was, at that point, I think I was getting frustrated with traditional talk therapy and in group therapy. I mean, I've been in group therapy, a little over a year now, and I've been in traditional talk therapy weekly since last July. And I was getting a little bit frustrated with that because it just felt like I was just talking about the same thing over and over again, and it wasn't really getting anywhere. So I decided, enough's enough. And on the way back, I decided to try hypnotherapy. I had a consultation the very next day, and then the very following Monday was my first session. And I'll probably go into details in other videos of what happened. For me, the main takeaway for the hypnotherapy, quite honestly, was that I now sleep 8 hours a night solid, no issues. As a matter of fact, after the very first hypnotherapy session, which was 2 hours, it was a lot. I came out of hypnosis extremely tired, and I slept that night just like a rock. And for the very first time in my life, I remembered every single dream that I had from beginning to end with perfect clarity, and can still remember it today, which has never happened to me before. And I've slept every single night. Well, there was one night, one night that I was up, a little bit of insomnia. But for the most part, I've slept every single night. And for anybody that's been through an avoidant discard, just how upsetting and destabilizing that is to just every single aspect of your life. I mean, for me, sleep was a huge thing. I did not sleep through a single night. I was getting 3-4 hours of sleep a night, and trying to function on that. I mean, it just doesn't work, and that's cumulative, and it just affects everything else. Your physical health, not eating properly, just a devastating time for me, and I'll get into a little bit more of that in later videos. And in this video, I want to do a little bit of just kind of vlogging from my memory here of the beginning of the relationship. A lot of this I think is going to be vlogging, or maybe a little bit more for me, but I hope other people out there can get something out of this, and maybe learn something about what I went through. And if there's avoidance out there, you get to see the other side. I mean, I think a really great video, or a great YouTube channel, if it ever was able to happen, would be to have a dismissive avoidant come back and participate one-on-one in these types of discussions, which, I mean, if they would do that, they wouldn't be avoidant. So, but we're left to guess, right? If you're in the same boat, to this day, I don't know why Sarah left. I really don't, because I heard a lot of the same crazy, ridiculous, nonsense excuses. They're not reasons, because they're not reasonable. The reasons that she gave for leaving are not going to stand the test of time. I mean, 10 years from now, if somebody asks her about our relationship and she gives these reasons, they're not going to look at her and nod their head and go, oh yeah, I could totally see, yeah, I would have left him too. No one's going to do that. She's going to get quizzical, odd looks of, why did you leave? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And I'm sure a lot of you are probably in the same boat. But in any case, we're left to guess. So I'm trying to fill in the holes here as much as I can. Hopefully these videos for me are a little bit therapeutic, and for you a little bit helpful. So if I go back to the beginning of our relationship, we met in September of 2022. And if I'm being perfectly honest, at that point in my life, I think I was 6 months out of another breakup that was, in hindsight, probably another dismissive avoidant discard. A little bit longer of a relationship, though. That was like 4 years. But I wouldn't say that in any way was I healed or ready. I don't believe that I should have been looking for a relationship at that point. I mean, we're never fully healed and fully ready. But I mean, even now, 7 months out of this relationship, I would say I am better prepared for my next relationship than I was going into this one. And it's common for us to just beat ourselves up and berate ourselves for what we don't know. But you didn't know. I did the best that I could with what I knew. I'm assuming that Sarah did the best with what she knew and what she had. So we met. It was a online match, I believe. And I remember, I think we chatted for a while and exchanged numbers, and I'm not sure if I think we met for a first coffee date just over here. And looking back, she didn't want to sit and talk over coffee. I mean, she walked in with the to-go cup ready to go. Let's go. I know where we're going to walk. She already had a walk planned out. Okay. No real red flag there. But I don't think there was any substantive conversation at that point. I don't recall the specifics of the conversation, but I do know that when we were talking online and we had exchanged numbers, I think I had texted her and tried to carry on a little bit of the conversation via text. You transition from whatever dating app to texting, and then you're going to meet. And I remember deleting her number, because I remember the conversation wasn't really going anywhere. So I think that was probably the first red flag that I probably skipped past. And I think we had set a date to meet, and then she had either canceled last minute or something like that. And yeah, that was it. She didn't really make a follow-up date. Like, she canceled, but she didn't really follow up with anything. And I kind of took that as, well, she's not interested. And I think I left it alone for a couple of weeks. And then somewhere I had found her number. I think I deleted her match message string or whatnot. Anyway, I got a hold of her number, and that's where we ended up for coffee. And then we had a dinner date, and then a walk around the lake. And I remember trying to hold her hand. And this was a constant throughout our relationship, and it sticks with me, because I've never had this happen before, when you go to reach for someone's hand and they hold your hand, but she was very jerky with it. Like, it was almost like you were holding hands with a 10-year-old, you know, like she would like jerk your hand. Like, it was clear looking back now that she was uncomfortable with it or didn't know. Like, again, I'm only guessing because, like many of you probably, these types of clarification conversations never happened. There was no, clarity is not a word I describe when I think of Sarah. It's more confusion, guessing, assumptions, the phrase, I don't know. But I do remember, that. And I'm not sure where or how we got from there to all of a sudden she seemed to be showing up really well. I do remember that I had come down with a cough of some sort, and she very much kicked in with, she came over, wearing a mask and brought soup and brought, cough medicines and very seemed very nurturing, very, very caring. And that struck me, that was nice. I think probably a need of mine is that an unmet need that, she showed up very well and, met that very well. I don't like the term love bombing. As I said in the last video, love bombing is more of a narcissist thing. You're intending to do damage, you're intending to mislead somebody. I think she showed up really, really well in the beginning of our relationship. Looking after me that way. To this day, I still drink a hot water first thing in the morning because of her. She brought over a bunch of different teas. I never was a tea drinker up until that point. Now I have tea quite often. So she definitely made an impact. There was a lot of food. She would bring over food that she would meal prep and whatnot, and she was very giving and sharing that way. Lots of activities. We would go bowling and things like that. A lot of walks. So again, just I hate to generalize, and I say these labels of dismissive avoidant and whatnot. They're simply for conversation, but very down the playlist of what most dismissive avoidants show up like at the beginning of the relationship, because there was no stakes for her. I mean, there was no emotional investment. Nobody's dropping love bombs. So she didn't have any of her fears coming online, of being enmeshed, being, losing her independence or anything like that. And I didn't have any of my fears online of, being abandoned, and, so it was very light and very enjoyable. And I would say it went on like that. I mean, we had a good first Christmas, really, really lovely Christmas cards from her. The other thing I noticed at the beginning of the relationship that I think was kind of a red flag looking back now is it took a long time for her to invite me to her house. And I from what I understand now and what I've learned, you know, that's a really big deal for a dismissive avoidant. I mean, their own personal space is it's almost bordering on sacred to them, that you're allowed in their space. And as a fearful avoidant, you know, I've swung to the avoidance side, you know, especially as a younger man, and so I understand that feeling. I mean, home is home, and you know, um, I'm particular as well as to who I invite into my home, and so I get that, but it just seemed a little bit odd. And you know, she would say, you know, we'll get there, and she spoke of us quite often as partners and a team. And I remember being resistant to the label of partner. I think that came up, you know, when I was asked, talking about boyfriend, girlfriend. You know, I think I mentioned to her directly that I had disabled dating apps, that I was basically all in, you know, I'm here, I'm all in. And she wouldn't label us as boyfriend, girlfriend. It was partner, and I didn't understand that. But she would talk about us as a team. She would, you know, she seemed very concerned for my health, that, you know, well, you know, I don't want to be dealing with health issues from you, you know, years from now. And this kind of talk was very early on. And, you know, that really struck with me, that, you know, wow, this person sees a future with me. You know, that meant a lot to me. And I definitely, you know, in hindsight, definitely latched onto that. And, you know, that's what I was looking for, was that feeling of home, that feeling of belonging. And, you know, she showed up like that very well in the beginning. Yeah, and then probably the biggest thing for me in the first, I would say, 6 months of our relationship. So yeah, we were September. My birthday was in February, and she really went over the top with my birthday. And I'm a twin, and when you grow up as a twin, I mean, maybe it's a twin thing, maybe it was just in our family. I never felt like my birthday was just mine. You know, you were always sharing it with somebody else. So you never felt like really special and really singled out, and that, you know, I, Travis, the individual, was important and worthy of that entire day being just about me. And she not only she made it an entire week. I mean, it was ridiculous, but I, like, in a good way. Looking back now, yeah, I mean, it was probably a little much, because I mean, you can only go down from there, right? I mean, she did try to raise the bar, you know, the couple of birthdays that I spent with her, but yeah, she booked a cabin in the woods, like a luxury, like a glamping type thing. You know, made a whole menu. We weren't there the whole week. We just went for a weekend, but, you know, took me out for dinner, gifts, you know, it was crazy. And then, I mean, even when we got back, she's like, okay, here's the last gift of your birthday week, and this kind of thing. I mean, it was really, really nice. I mean, I think, I don't really recall the moment that I told her, Sarah, I love you so much. But I do remember feeling it, like, even today, with everything that I've gone through. And if you keep watching this channel, you're gonna hear some pretty horrific stuff that I've been through since this discard. even now, even sitting here today, I can still say to myself that I love Sarah. I do. Um, I care about her. I worry about her. But in that moment, I was so happy that, you know, I felt like I had found the one. And yeah, and then the next moment after telling her that I love her, that, you know, she didn't say it back. She just said, and that was just kind of crushing. And I don't know if it was in that moment or maybe the next day that I asked her, you know, what's going on there. And, you know, she tried to play it off like I don't say that very often. I mean, truth be told, she never said it in the entire 2 years that we were together. She never ever said, you know, Travis, I love you. There were a lot of things that weren't said. But anyway, that's kind of how the relationship began. And I think, and again, without participation from the other half of the equation, which I'm sure is the same boat a lot of you are in, I don't really know when the fade out started, when the flaw finding, when the thoughts of what's my escape plan here were forming in her head. I can only guess that I think it had something to do, or it started the moment that I told her that I loved her, because now it's real. This shit just got real. There's emotions, there's feelings, and, you know, I think in that moment, her deactivation strategies probably started to come online. That feeling of, I'm not good enough. What if he finds out that I'm not good enough? You know, a lot of avoidants will behave and show up this way really, really well in the beginning of a relationship because they don't want you to see that they can be difficult, they can be quirky, they can be, you know, not easy partners to have, to get along with because of the way that they are. And, you know, I think those fears started probably very, very subtle, but probably started to kick in there that, you know, I worked really hard to show this guy what a good partner that I am. And oops, you know, what's that, oops, I did it again, Britney Spears. You know, oh crap, he's fallen in love. And now I have to live up to, you know, I've heard it said in other videos and other channels that, you know, if a dismissive avoidant actually tells you that they love you in that moment, it's almost like in their head they're signing a contract that, you know, they're unable to not love you after that, and they you know, they can't handle that because that would be admitting a mistake, that they made a mistake. So it's like they play everything very close to the chest. In any case, you know, so her fears kicked in. My fears definitely kicked in because I'm like, that had never happened to me before. I mean, hindsight's 2020. I know what that means now. You know, had I known that, I honestly, it's sad to say, you know, I feel like that relationship should not have lasted much beyond that. But again, it was two unhealed, wounded inner children trying to have a grown-up relationship, especially from that point on. Every conflict that we had, everything was not two healed, mature, secure adults having that exchange. It was, you know, my wounded teenager, her wounded 9-year-old. I don't know. I don't know when her wounds were. Anyway, I think I'll wrap up this video there with that little bit of insight into how the relationship began. And then the next one, I think, we'll dive into a little bit more of, you know, how things started to come undone, what was happening in the conflicts, things like that. I hope you're all taking care of yourself. Don't suffer in silence. Please reach out to therapists, men's groups, women's groups. There are support groups out there. You're not alone. There's just a ton of great resources on YouTube. Reloved Project is a great one with Alicia, Sarah Christine, Corey T, the Personal Development School. There's so many really good resources on YouTube. So please look after yourself, and I will see you in the next video. Thanks, guys.